Thank you, Lorenzo. So I will try to explain the same story from the point of view of the small company, because we are a small company. Abacus is a small company in Milano. And we were able to grow up and improve ourselves thanks to funded research. So this is a part of research we were involved in the last 10 years, more or less. The first project was Smiling that Lorenzo was presenting before. And we had the opportunity to be involved in consortia, in different kind of consortia, where we were able to meet academies, but also mainly end users. So just to give an idea, we get funding with the 7 framework program, then with Horizon 2020, with some Interreg program, and also in Lombardy with the PCP, that is a new experience for us, so commercial procurement. And in this way, we were able to improve our knowledge, because the first point for an SME is to be able to improve competencies. So if you look on the right of the picture, you see that we were involved in several fields. In the follow, I mainly talk you about the wearable technology and data science and the user experience. However, all of these projects allow us to grow in number, because we started as 2 partners with a few consultants, and now we are more than 10 people. In 5 years is a big growth. And also to put as a basis for developing some product. So from research, we move to development. You see the competencies that come from the project, and you see mainly 4, but mainly 3 areas of development in which we are going to develop product. The first one is monitoring, physical and cognitive monitoring on the longer period, and this is what I will present you today. The second one is smart mobility, and the third one is mainly rehabilitation. So in these 3 areas, our contribution to European project has changed, has evolved to become a product or a meta product. So from technological research, we are now in a phase 2, maybe, in which, with our product, we are moving to apply the research, mainly to clinical trials, because the technology is robust enough, and what we need to do, together with our partners, mainly clinical one in this case, is to tailor this technology, this acquired knowledge, in tools that may be used. I told you that we are an SME, and this is quite important, because this is also a choice to work as much as possible, not on the developing of new electronics, of new devices, that is very heavy for a small company, but to exploit as much as possible what mainstream technology is already giving to us. Because we think that the mainstream technology has the advantage to be quite fast in reaching everyone. So it may be a solution for a lot of problems. For this reason, I would like to show you as an example of what we are able to do this application that is called Quantify My Person, and that was originated by a project called MResist, in which we were asked to contribute to the longer-term monitoring of people with schizophrenia. The aim of the project was to assess the adherence to treatment of these people. So what was needed was to find a way, absolutely not an obtrusive way, to monitor them, just to be able to follow them and to prevent suicide episode and all maniac episode they may have. And the idea was to start from the smartphone. So the basic idea is to have a smartphone as a front end on the patient side and a dashboard on the clinical side, just to look at parameter and to look at some trigger of intervention. This kind of approach is perfectly in line on what is happening today, because we are in the context of before medicine, so medicine is changing, and meanwhile also technology is changing. We start in 90s with the first internet connection, mainly on the content, and now we are in the middle of Internet of Things. This means that all devices, and again, smartphone is the first one, are able to give us a lot of information, also in the context, because it's not enough to know how many physical activity I have done today, but it's quite important to contextualize this information, when and how. And in this frame, what we have done, starting from the MResist project, was to develop some kind of a multi-sensor platform. The core of the multi-sensor platform is a smartphone. On the smartphone, we are able to acquire different kind of information from the already embedded sensor. So this means not only accelerometers, just to have an idea of the movement of the phone, so somehow physical activity, and I will be back to this, but also cognitive and social activity by means of the usage of the phone. Calls, kind of mobile apps I use, and this kind of information, and GPS also, that is quite important. But the same platform may be extended to include also wearable sensor. Again, when possible, commercial wearable sensor. So smartwatches are already on the market. Because the concept, the idea behind this is that for sure, with the information we can get from a smartphone or from a smartwatch, we will not be able to make a diagnosis. But it's not our target. The target is to develop something that may trigger an intervention. What we are looking here is a change in your habits, in changing your lifestyle. Per se, it may be everything. But in some pathology, we have done some initial study with the neurological pathologies, is quite important because a change in your habits may indicate something more important. It may be used also looking at pharmaceutical treatment, just to see how a person reacts to treatment, these kind of things. And the advantage is that all of us have a smartphone in a bag or pocket, and the costs are really quite limited. The cost may be only on the other side, just to set up an architecture, server, cloud, and so on, to allow the clinician to look at the data. The architecture, as I told you, is quite simple. So on one side, you have the user with a mobile phone. These data are collected on a 24-hour, 7 days basis. The data are processed to extract some features, and we will see which features are. And then these features are shown on a screen to the medical doctor or to the operator with some kind of alarm. So we may define a baseline that is more or less the standard lifestyle of the person, and we look at how the behavior goes out of this acceptable variability. This is a concept. The feature were the one you see here are mainly related to the cognitive and mental side, because were the one we studied in MResist. We went through a wider review of literature, and this review of literature point out that some features we may collect with the smartphone are well related to change in depression, stress, and this kind of things. Again, so one is the GPS, number of call, duration of call, the time I spent on the phone, the apps I use, because I may use a communication app or I may use a navigation app, and it's quite different, and somehow the physical activity by means of accelerometer. It's a very recent an article, a paper about screenomics. It was on all the papers a few days ago, a few weeks ago, in which they went to look at the use of the screen, both on the app and both on the PC. This is not the idea. Also, I reported this data because it was our starting point, but what we think and what we are seeing in reality, that this makes sense only in a longitudinal way. I mean, I may look at how I change referring to myself. There is not a standard way of being. There is the lazy people, there is a very active one. So what I think this technology may help us to know is if you change. Why you change is another story, and it's to the medical doctor. But from the point of view of the scheduling of visits, just to give you an idea, it's quite important because with some degenerative or progressive disease, you are able not to schedule visit one each month, one each 6 months, but just to call the patient or schedule visit when it's needed. The first issue when you try to do this kind of things is to see if the technology is accepted. This is the very early study we have done, and these are healthy people. We found 16 people that accept to install the app on their phone, solving a lot of problems because there is a lot of privacy issue. We have solved some of these issues by, for example, looking at the GPS. We are not looking at absolute coordinate, but only a delta from home. So we don't know where you are, but only if you're moving from a basis, this kind of things. And you see how there was already a big variability in the time of usage of the app. Why? Mainly because of privacy issue, and at the beginning, and for some phone, also battery issue. Because it's quite strange, but people, all of us, are happy to discharge completely the battery to look at Facebook. But if they have a background application, they fear that is the background application using all the power. So main issue with this kind of technology is acceptance. A very interesting thing is, for example, the number of hours the phone was on during the day. Because if you want to make an application that works in real life, you have to take account of real life. And a lot of people switch off the phone during the night. It's quite normal. But already this information is useful if I want to depict the habits of people. Because if you switch off the phone when you go to sleep, you do all the day, all the night. So it's part of your habit, it's part of your profile. This is a point. Also, there was a lot of problem with some kind of phone. For example, Huawei phone, just to give one brand, have a security mechanism that switch off all the sensor if the screen is off somehow. Also, this at the end, I have not the data here, became an indication of the way you use phone. Because another criticism, another point, for example, was about accelerometer data. Accelerometer data give you an indication, a very broad indication of physical activity. The criticism is that if you put the phone on the desk, as you normally do at work, it does not record, so you don't see the physical activity. Well, it's true, it's a limit, but in the same time, it's still part of your habits, because you always put the phone on the table when you are in the office. So this is a kind of information you may get from here. Okay, I will skip this one, because one of the main issues is to identify which features are meaningful. You can do mathematically with the principal component analysis. But what I want to show you is the sensitiveness, if possible, in a very broad way of this instrument. These are data for healthy people, the sample we have seen before, where the blue one is from Monday to Friday, while the green one is Saturday and Sunday. And you see, for example, the use of calls and communication app during the week. It seems that people during the weekly days are more using the phone, while in the weekend probably they are more involved in other activity, so the phone use less. If you look at the physical activity, high level of physical activity, you see that it's on an hour basis. In the morning of Sunday and Saturday, there is a lot of activity. I don't want to show you this is as a result of our analysis, but to show you how life habits are immediately reflected in this kind of information. So we think it may be a way to measure something. Also here, if I am able to start, okay, it's going. This is GPS. The size of the different bubble is the number of hours each day you spent in a place. As you see, there is no indication of the place because of a matter of privacy, but this is a quite important information for mental issue, for example, because when you start to stay in isolation at home, it's quite important. And your bubble is just a big one at home, and you have no longer the other bubble. Or normally, in most of people, you have a two big bubble. One is home and the other one is office. And then you have other small bubble around. For example, in elderly people, works on GPS say and demonstrate that it's quite important to know if you go to social activity. So the market, the bar, this kind of things. There's very simple indication on what may happen. So this was just to give you an idea of how research may lead to simpler products, because for sure European community will never pay for this app per se, because it's not part of the system. But they give us, as a company, the possibility to develop products that are now in a second phase, because what we are doing now is to set up a cooperation with the hospital, with the association, to tailor this kind of assessment to what you need, because in palliative care, your needs are different from a neurological disease, but exploiting a robust basis. This is the point. Thank you very much.